I'm proud to announce today the culmination of a year-long effort that we began going across the state, holding hearings, trying to detail what our state's assets are, and trying to find a niche. My name is Mark Alessi. I'm the chair of the emerging workforce in the New York State Assembly. And when they bestowed that honor upon me, I wasn't sure if I was being set up and having the responsibility of coming up with a plan for creating jobs in one of the worst economic crises our state and our nation has seen in generations. But automatically, I didn't want to fall into the same cookie-cutter approach to economic development where we just try to race to the bottom and try to compete, for example, with South Carolina in offering the cheapest workforce and the cheapest tax rates. I felt in New York State we had some enormous assets. Through our hearing process, we found that in certain parts of New York State we could offer better tax packages than our competitor states. But that companies, when they do their research of where they're going to locate, look at the Business Council's website and hear just how bad it is in New York to do business. So I wanted to stop talking about our liabilities and start talking about our assets. Our assets are our workforce. We invest more in educating our workforce from primary education and secondary education and higher education than pretty much any other state in the nation. Now we pay dearly for that through our property taxes, but there is a strength there because in an innovation economy you need a skilled workforce, and that is becoming more and more apparent as we move forward in this innovation economy. Secondly, we invest more in research than any other state in the nation per capita. California invests $6.3 billion. We invest $4.3 billion, but we have half the population. We are the patent capital of the world in New York State between our public and private sectors. And we're the financial capital of the world. But other states are taking our ideas and our money, putting those two items together and creating jobs in those other states. So we honed in on trying to find out why that was. And our first supposition was, well, New York is not competitive enough when it comes to property taxes and things like that. But the further we researched this, we found out that we were losing these jobs to Boston, to Silicon Valley, to Houston, Texas, to places that have similar tax issues than we do. So we wanted to look at what the issue was. Why can Boston create these tech transfer jobs and New York is having a difficult time? And we found that when a researcher or a patent maker has an idea that can be brought to market, we lack the ecosystem, the business ecosystem, to help foster that innovation, to help bring that researcher and give him a staff, to incentivize hiring. That first job, the second job, the third job. Boston offers tax credits for that, as does Silicon Valley. They offer assistance in business planning. And they have an ecosystem that helps bring products from the lab to the market. We held a hearing on Long Island at SUNY Stony Brook, and we had a cross-section of economic development folks and business leaders from across Long Island. We held a hearing in Albany, and the same composition, a diverse, we had everybody from farmers who are on the cutting edge of biotechnology to information technology firms to researchers that were bringing new products out of their labs. And we kept hearing the same recurring theme, that we needed to provide an incentive for investors and for business to invest in these small micro companies and help them become larger companies here in New York State. So when we finally got to Niagara in Buffalo and we met with some of the folks out of the University of Buffalo, we realized the theme was statewide. But I want to draw our attention right here to Long Island. When we have Brookhaven National Lab, we have SUNY Stony Brook, we have Cold Spring Harbor Lab, leading innovation in this region. We have more engineers, more researchers per capita in our area than most other parts of the United States. And with that brain power, with that intellectual quotient, we should be doing a whole lot more in terms of creating new products and creating new jobs. So I've authored a number of bills to help foster tech transfer in New York State. I met with venture capitalists and equity investors and asked them, why aren't you investing in New York State companies? And they mentioned how in Boston or in Pennsylvania, they incentivize the first hire. They incentivize the company to buy the building, to buy the software, to hire a patent lawyer, to hire an engineering firm. All of those startup costs are creditable through tax credits off of their income tax. So I've authored legislation A1892, which gives a 10% of an equity investment in a QBTC, if held up to 4 years, up to $150,000 in aggregate for all 4 years. That's the current credit. We're changing that credit for a new approach. 25% of a qualified investment with 10% taken as a credit in the first year and 5% in the next 2 years, up to $300,000. We're going to incentivize seed investments like angel investors. We're going to give them a 40% credit off of their income taxes. We're going to give a 20% credit for investments in venture capital funds that help incentivize qualified emerging technology companies here in New York State. And we're going to give a 20% credit for investments in seed capital funds with, again, $300,000 for those investors. So if you're an investor and you want to invest in a company, there are hundreds of thousands of dollars of tax credits available to you for each company you invest in New York State that is a new emerging technology coming out of one of our incubators that can create jobs here in New York State. The next bill is Assembly Bill 10115. I've authored this bill giving a 15% qualified commercialization expenses. So 15% of what you spend will be credited back to you from New York State for testing, for prototyping, for designing, for any necessary materials or fixtures or laboratory equipment, for incorporation fees and legal expenses, any attorney fees, fees for licensing of technologies developed at universities, transactional legal expenses related to licensing university technologies, trade show and conference fees, production, promotion, and market research expenses. This credit may be claimed for 4 consecutive taxable years, and the credit is refundable. So, the venture capitalists and the equity investors told me that if you want them to invest in companies, make sure the companies succeed. Well, in the first 4 years, these startups sometimes aren't profitable. So right now, the state doesn't give them a tax credit if they're not making any money. This is a refundable tax credit. So if the company doesn't make money in those initial years, they're still going to get money from New York State as a benefit for investing in New York State. So we've heard it loud and clear from a number of our venture capitalists, our equity investors, our researchers, and the people involved with tech transfer. These are the kinds of bills that we need to push in the next legislative session. This is the new model for creating jobs in New York State. The old model of just throwing tax money at a target to bring retail jobs to New York State, those jobs are coming anyway, and it's a waste of our tax dollars. But these targeted tax credits will make a difference, will create good paying jobs right here in our community. And the reason I've chose this backdrop, this is the former Nikola Tesla lab.